皆さんは生きづらさを感じたり、社会の当たり前、普通の基準に合わないと感じることがありますか？もし答えが Yes なら You're in the right place。 Sunny Days in the USA シーズン2では、人生という地図上であなたを助けるコンパスになりますようにをテーマに、皆さん一人一人が自分らしく、あなたのOnly Oneな人生を歩む手助けができればいいなと思っています。Hello everybody, thank you for listening to Sunny Days in the USA. Today I am going to talk all in English. So if you're learning English, welcome. And if you want to listen in Japanese, please go ahead and check out other episodes that are in Japanese. Alright.So today I am going to talk about intention versus perception. So that sounds kind of difficult, or do you even know what they mean? So oftentimes we as human, I think, we think about things that we want to say in our head, and we try to say it, and it doesn't sound as you wanted it to sound.Does that sound familiar to you at all? So that happened to me a lot. Or rather, I think about what I want to say and it comes out super harsh. Or I don't mean it that way, but it does sound harsh to other people. And that phrase right there, I said, I didn't mean it that way, right?It happens a lot. You all have probably experienced that, you're arguing with your partners and then, you say something and a word slipped out of your mouth and your partner look at you like, are you serious? Did you just say that? Kind of thing. That happens to me all the time because I do say things very straightforward.And also, I do have a poor choice of words. So my partner, my husband, look at me and be like, did you really have to say that? Or did you really have to say it that way? That's what he says all the time because, what I intended to say didn't come out the way I wanted it to sound. That happens a lot when you want to say one thing and the choice of your words or how you deliver it doesn't match with your hope, right? And there's another time when you want to say something and you say it with an intention and the person who you're talking to doesn't perceive that way. So I want to convey a message A,And to the person I was talking to, it sounded like message B, if that makes sense. So there is always a mismatch between you and the person you're speaking to. And that is okay, that's normal. But one thing that I've been noticing when somebody says one thing and, either me or somebody else understands it in another way,it's that it is up to the person who you are speaking to understand and decode what you're saying. Okay, let me say that again. So, once a message comes out of your mouth, it is gonna be up to the person who you are speaking to decode and perceive your message.So it doesn't matter if you mean it in one way if the person who you're speaking to took it another way because it's up to them to understand what you mean. So one thing I've been noticing about communication, interpersonal communication, is that you have to be very clear and precise of what you're saying. You have to communicate it with great words of choice and you have to clearly state what you mean And you also have to choose a right mean of communication. So at work, at personal life, in any situations, I've been having a bit of trouble when I communicate rather difficult topics, because I guess I tend to be a bit too straightforward, or I don't really like to make small talks and stuff like that. I'd rather get to the point. So some people would think I'm too much or too confrontational or too straightforward or too to the point. And for me, the way I speak, the way I carry my conversation is just to be efficient and to use my time without wasting it. But for other people, they might think that I'm a bit too offensive sometimes, I guess. And that is mismatch right there between how I'm meaning to communicate versus the person I'm talking to, how they perceive my communication style. So, it's really tough when you think about it. Human relationship, there's so many elements right there. You have to worry about your facial expression, your nonverbal cues. You have to make sure you're choosing the right words. You have to use the right tone of your voice. You have to choose the right mean of communication. There are a lot of things to consider, and sometimes it gets to the point where it's like too much. But I've been having a lot of conversation with especially my husband, because that's who I talk to all the time, is that it doesn't matter what you meant once the words came out of your mouth, once it's perceived by somebody else. It's going to be up to that somebody else to understand it and understand the way they think with their background, the cultural background, or experience and things like that, biases. So one example that I can think of, and it's not the best, and I don't think my husband is gonna appreciate it, but he did use a word gay in a rather offensive way. So in English, in American English, I don't know if in other countries like British or Australian and stuff like that, but in America, I don't really actually know what the phrase mean, but some people say, "Oh, that's so gay," to say something like, I don't know, it's like, "Oh, that's weird," or like, "Oh, that's," I don't know if that's silly. I don't know. I think that's weird. It's the right context. But my husband used to say, "Oh, that's so gay," like that in conversations. And I said, "Hey, I don't think that's a great choice of word that you say. That's so gay. Like, that's weird, especially because he does have a family member who is a gay." And in his culture, so to clarify, my husband is Mexican American, so in his culture it's a bit a taboo to identify your gender as something else than female or male. Even in Japanese culture too, not many people are acceptable of that yet, I don't think. But in Mexican culture too, that it's a bit a difficult topic, I would say. So my husband's family member, who is close to my husband, he is gay. So I said, for my husband to use a word gay in a context like, "Oh, that's weird," that's offensive, because what if my husband actually used it to that family member, right? And I don't think that family member actually would have appreciated it. So I said, "Hey, don't use that word like that. I don't think that's great. You can literally choose other word, like another word, right? There are so many other words in English that you can choose from. Why would you choose gay like that, right? So, we argued. My husband didn't really understand why I was so upset about it. Because, I don't identify myself as a gay. So, like, for my husband, why does it matter so much? And I was like, well, because it's personal to me. Like, I really like the family member of my husband who identify himself as a gay. He's super great. I love it. I love him so much. Like, he's so much fun to talk to. And so for me, I don't want to disrespect him like that, right? And so I told my husband that, like, I love your family member. And, like, I don't think that saying that is great. It's disrespectful. And my husband still didn't understand it. And I said to my husband as well that it really doesn't matter what you think or what you are trying to say or what you're trying to mean, because whatever other people hear, or whenever other people hear that my husband is saying, oh, that's so gay, they're gonna think that you have, you're not educated, you don't have no knowledge, you don't have no sensitivity, things like that. And I don't want my husband to be that way, because I know my husband, he is not none of that. He is a great person, he's a kind person, he's a considerate, he can be, he is a sensitive person, but he does have a bad word of choice like me, I guess. So we argued a little bit and we discussed about it like a civil human being. And, we were like, my husband came to a conclusion that, okay, I'm not going to use it like that anymore because, it is personal to me too. And I was like, all right, that's great. So from that example of our conversation, which I don't think my husband appreciates it, that I shared it, but is that, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter what you think or what you were trying to say, right? Like, once the phrase or word or sentences came out of your mouth, it's going to be up to other people who are listening to it to interpret and think the person you are, right? Like, I could be saying anything I want, all the racial slurs I want, or I can say any message, I can convey any message in a way that's so offensive to anybody, right? It's gonna be up to the other people who are listening to me and decide what kind of person I am and what kind of ideology I have and things like that. So you have to be really careful of, the communication tool that you're using, communication style that you're choosing. So I think one thing you always want to keep in mind is your intention doesn't matter when it's perceived in a wrong way. You can try to make excuses, you can try to explain yourself as much as possible. But once your message is conveyed to another person, it's going to be up to that person to perceive and interpret what you meant. So there could be a mismatch between you and the person who you're talking to. And that's normal. That's very natural. That's why you have to make sure that you're choosing right tone of voice, right words of choice, right mean of communication. What I mean by that is that you can call, you can email, you can text, you can FaceTime, you can Zoom, whatever. But, if you tend to have miscommunication when you're texting or emailing, maybe it's because you're writing, the communication in writing is not that great. So maybe you have to call. Maybe you have to do a Zoom meeting, right? I tend to read between lines in email communication. interpret things a little bit different, I think. So I always take it too personal. Or like I think that the person who I'm talking to is mad at me or something like that. So I try to go into their office and then talk to them in person, even though it could be a waste of time for them. But for me, I just need to clarify a little bit. And I know that sometimes my writing can be a bit too simple. I don't practice my empathy as much, I guess, in writing. So I try to talk in person or try to call and stuff like that. And sometimes I have to sleep on it. I can't just reply right away. Because when I'm upset or mad, I tend to speak my mind, and it never ends up well. So I usually sleep on it, think about it, and I usually reply next day to whoever I'm talking to, because I don't want to convey my message in wrong tone or wrong wording, and that the person who I'm speaking to perceive me as a negative person. So that's that. But I think, as you talk to other people, as you increase your communication, you always encounter those issues between what you mean versus what they thought you mean. So I think that's a very valuable lesson for everybody, including myself, to understand that there could be a mismatch, and that's okay. You just have to make sure you use right tools to communicate, and you also might have to explain yourself a little bit better. So that's that. Thank you so much for listening to my English episode. It's been a long time since I did it, so I was a bit nervous, but a person who actually listened to my episode in English told me that when I'm speaking in English, I sound a bit more excited, or like, I don't know, happy. So I was like, great, that's awesome. So yeah, I guess I like speaking in English sometimes. So yeah, thank you so much for listening. Sunny days in the USA. I hope your day becomes a sunny day as well. Bye.